Hi, my name is Vance Powell. I'm from a small town in Missouri called Joplin, Missouri, on Route 66. And I lived there for about 20 some years before I moved off into the world. And yeah, it was small town America, 40,000 people. Small town America. It was pretty great as a kid growing up. I got into the music business because I was a kid who went to electronic school in high school, and then I got into computer science, and this is like 1982, and it was really kind of dull, to be honest with you. And so, a friend of mine played guitar in a, but he wasn't really in a band, and then he kind of was in a band, and then they started playing club gigs at bars, and I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. There's like girls here, and they're like enjoying themselves, unlike the college, a computer lab, which was just a bunch of nerds in 1982. So that's how I kind of got into it, and I had been a stereo nerd actually. So it was funny. There's a store in Joplin called the Stereo Buff, and I was a stereo buff. I had cool speakers, and I had cool amps and cool turntable, and so it kind of just went from there. The band had a little PA. They didn't know anything about it. I started doing it, thinking I knew what I was doing. Here I am. I am the worst guitar player on the planet. I don't like to think of myself as a player at all. I like to think of myself as a guitar owner. I also own drums. I don't really play them. I own keyboards. I definitely don't play them. I own basses. I don't play them. I'm an owner of all those things. Yeah, I think if you gave me a chord chart with them written out in big letters, I could rehearse it and probably play along. That's how bad I am. I never had any time to practice. It's too busy working actually and doing this. So, but maybe later in my life I'll teach myself guitar. That would be awesome. I got into engineering first because I was mixing live bands, kind of doing the road thing. And there was a little studio in my hometown, and I started working there. And I guess that's kind of production when no one is the producer. I guess the engineer is kind of the producer. Um, so I did that and kind of did the road thing and the studio thing sort of at the same time. And all the way up until about 2002, I was doing studio work and I was doing live sound, which not a lot of people do. Then once 2002, I just started basically studio only. And, 4 or 5 years ago, just said, hey, I can, the production thing, I've seen it. I've seen how it all works. I think I know what I'm doing. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Don't know. I don't know that anybody really knows it until suddenly they look back and they've made, 100 records. And it's like, oh yeah, maybe I know what I'm doing. So it's kind of that way. So how did I learn the craft? Well, I taught myself very early on in the live sound days how I thought things. Now, here's the interesting part: how I thought things should sound. That's the important part, not how other people think it should sound. How I thought it sounded. I just did it, and that's what it was. Went to work at a studio in my hometown, and there was no other engineer, so it was just me. So I had to teach myself how to do everything: tape editing, calibrating, biasing, tape machine, multi-track machine, everything. I had to teach myself how to do it. There's manuals. I'd take the manual home and learn how things work. And then I would go in the studio and try it out and fail a lot and was successful a fair amount. And then that just kind of kept going on and on. The other thing that helped me in learning the craft was I spent a couple of years working for a guy by the name of Lou Whitney. And Lou is an awesome, amazing talent, a great bass player, great songwriter, a great human, one of the best humans that's ever walked the earth, in my opinion. Just funny and irreverent and awesome. I learned a lot working for Lou, but not so much maybe about the technical side of it, but about the people game. This business is about how to deal with clients, how to make sure people are happy, how to keep people happy, how to make people laugh, blah, 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 how important all that was. He was really great. I miss him. Let's see, I'm 54 now. I don't know, get back to me in a couple of years. Yeah, I'd definitely say there was. A couple things happened. I worked for a band on the road that went called Jars of Clay, and in 2001 or 2000 really, into 2000, they asked me to record a Christmas record for them. And I said, "Oh, Christmas record, fun! It'll be great." And so I took a little sabbatical from touring. I worked for Clare Brothers. I took a 6-week sabbatical to do the record. And 11 and a half months later, we finished this record. And it was a Grammy Award winner. And that was a big deal. That was a really big deal. Because part of what happened there is that opened the door to me to start working with John McBride at Blackbird. And then the really big break was being asked to mix a Raconteurs record with Jack White. Joe Ciccarelli had engineered it, brilliant recording. It wasn't like I was saving a record or anything. It was already great. But it was a big deal. It was a big step in the right direction for me. I knew how to do it. I knew I could put it all together, and it was just a really great opportunity. So yeah, it was great. Well, the only thing that really sort of changed after that is that there were bands that loved that record, and they started wanting that sound. You know, half of them went to Ciccarelli, or 3/4 of them went to Ciccarelli, and 10% of them came to me, and that was totally fine. So that's kind of the first thing that happened. The other thing that happened was all of a sudden I was kind of Jack White's first call. So he called me to do the James Bond theme, and then the Dead Weather record came out of some demos and things that happened from there. And then after that record, then another Dead Weather record, and then all the Third Man records, Wanda Jackson record, all those Third Man records, and then Blunderbuss, his solo record, and then Lazaretto and all that. So yeah, there was a lot of that. That was a really good thing. You know, a lot of people love the Dead Weather record, the first one and the second one, and I definitely got a lot of calls after that. So it was great. I work every day. That's how I keep my skill. I work every day. That's like asking a guitar player like that plays every night down here in Nashville on Broadway, like, how do you keep up your chops? Like, well, I work every night, 4 hours a night, playing music. That's how I keep up my chops. So how do I keep up with things? I just work every day, and every day I come up with another idea that is, I feel like, wow, I've got this idea, if I do this, and then I realize that's how everybody does it. Yeah, I think that's kind of the deal. I just keep working, trying to make records that sound, like something to me. One of the things that's interesting about maybe the records that I've been a part of is that I think I can very confidently say that I don't hear anything the way other people do. The other thing was no one taught me anything. I had no Jay Messina to sit behind, no Steve Marcantonio to sit behind, nobody. And by the time I got to Lou, I had already been doing it so long that Lou was asking me what I was doing. Like, oh, what are you doing on that? Like, what's going on? And I did a lot of that for Lou too. So it was a good back and forth. But I don't think I hear things the way other people hear it. I think there's engineers and producers that I love their work, that when I listen to it, I go, oh, that's what a record should sound like. But then to have people say, oh man, I just love the sound of your records, goes contrary to that. You know what I mean? I love Bob Clearmountain's mixes. I love his work. I could never do it. Massenberg, same thing. I just can't do it. I can't do it. I just don't hear it the same way. And so, that's the beauty of music, And back to Lou Whitney. Lou Whitney had the greatest saying ever, and that was, one man's boy howdy's, another man's far out. Which is funny because a lot of people don't even understand that. It's so old school, but it's really one man's OMGs, another man's WTF. Like, what you like may not be what I like. And the kick drum sound that you think is the best, I can't stand. I can tell you right now that every time I listen to sample packs, I hate every single one of them. Terrible sounding. Not terrible sounding, just not anything I just don't get it. Is this the way a kick drum's supposed to sound? It's supposed to have all that 10K in it? Because it doesn't sound like that when I hear it across the room. But again, it's different strokes, different folks. Some people love it, some people don't. It's all fine. I didn't learn behind anybody. So I have no basis for what things should sound like. only what's in my head. And I think a lot of people did learn from other people. They did learn where to put microphones. They did learn how to, like, okay, with this kick drum, we're going to take the front head off. We're going to put the mic here. And then we're going to go in on the 1073. We're going to turn it down to 315 and turn that down and turn up 100. And here's that sound. Here's my kick drum sound. We're going to do it the same way every time. I have to learn. Every record I do, I hate the kick drum on every record I do. And later go, God, I love the kick drum. And I'm like, I hate it. So, but a year later, I listen to it and I go, oh, that's actually pretty cool. So that's kind of how things work for me. I can listen to a record a year later and be like, oh, that's okay. But until then, it's like, I hate it. Weird. Go outside, look around, breathe in the air, look at the trees. Our business, as you can see here, we spend a lot of time in the dark. Sometimes that's inspiring, to encapsulate yourself into this little bubble, this little womb of creativity, where nobody's right and nobody's wrong, and that's awesome. But from time to time, get out, walk around a little bit, look at the world around you, and listen for things that you don't expect. I had an idea for a track once, for a bridge of a track once, that because we went to a Mexican restaurant and they had like a mariachi band or some sort of norteño or mariachi or something playing on the speaker, the speaker in the restaurant, but the speaker right above me was obviously blown out. And so it was this fuzzy, buzzy mariachi thing. And there was a couple times where the bass would be like boom, 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 boom. It was just this great farty thing. And I was like, that's kind of a cool sound. Like, how can we, and then the part of the whole sound of it, how bad it sounded was, I thought, kind of cool. And that inspired me to try to do something with this track we were doing or whatever, So, just listen to things. Ambient sounds are really cool, especially like, birds and trees and cars going by and planes flying over, all that stuff, there's sounds in there that are kind of cool. We had helicopters go over here all the time, and that's pretty cool. Like you're in here and all of a sudden, boom, 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 the whole building's shaking. I'm like, man, I wish I could record that on something and make it feel like it does right now when the building's shaking because there's 8 Black Hawk helicopters going over, So just listen. Let's unpack this a bit. Analog or digital, console and the box. 4 different things. Like it's hard to have an analog in the box. So we got to write those things off. It's hard to do that. It's tough to try. I mean, you could do it, but that'd be kind of dumb, I think. Why not just transfer it? Then it's digital. So analog is awesome. I love the sound of it. Here's the problem. It's very hard to get good tape. It's very expensive. Nobody has the budget. Like when you start talking to record labels and you say, okay, cool, I need to buy a pair of 1 terabyte drives for this record. And they're like, okay. They're like $40, right? I'm like, yeah, they are. Office Depot or whatever, right? Or I'm going to say, I need about 15 reels of 2-inch. They're $300 a piece. Nobody pays for that shit. So we end up using tape over, recording over tape. Well, all that stuff, all that means it just ends up back being digital. Yes, there are advantages to the sound of tape. I cut a record last year. There's a French band called the Inspector Clouseau, 2-piece band, and I cut the whole record on 8 tracks, and it was amazing. It was awesome sounding. But again, I couldn't keep all the tapes, so we transferred it into Pro Tools, and I mixed it out of Pro Tools. So, yes, digital. Get good converters. If you want to use tape, great. Just everybody has to know it's slower. Going to require some, work, keeping the tape machine going, got to rewind, all that stuff, which is all beautiful stuff. It's a great workflow. And it sounds great if the tape's lined up. If you have good tape, first of all. Secondly, if it's lined up right, you have a good machine. All those things, it's great. Now, the next one, console versus in the box. Look behind you here. console. Now, have I mixed in the box? Absolutely. I mixed in the box for a long time. First, from the time of the first Pro Tools sessions, I was in the box until much later. Early 2000s when I was a Blackbird, we were recording in Pro Tools and mixing on a console. But all the stuff that I was doing on the side, all my side work and bands, I was doing it all in the box. There's a lot to be said about it. I can't deny it. And it gets better every year. Plugins get better every year. The mix bus has gotten definitely better. The converters have gotten better. All of that stuff, it's gotten better. What is not better is serendipity. Now, everybody knows what serendipity is. Serendipity is a concept about accidental things happening that are positive things happening. How that means in the workflow is this. Back when we had tape and we had a console, because it's the only way you could mix it, right? You'd record the tape and every track on the tape from song to song would be the same. But it was inevitable that at some point when doing vocals or overdubs or guitars or something, where maybe, tracks got bounced or moved around or something, there would end up being a vocal where a guitar was, or a guitar where a vocal was, or a keyboard where a vocal, or background vocals where the, blah, blah, blah. You see what I'm getting at? And so what would happen is you'd mix a track and the track would be awesome and you'd love it. Everybody print the mix, perfect, great. Okay, for the next song, you didn't zero the board. You didn't unpatch the whole thing and start again. You just rolled to the next song, put in a marker on the tape machine and hit play. And so what would happen is, okay, maybe these two songs from tape to tape were recorded 5 months apart in a different studio with a different drummer. Well, now any EQ, any effects, anything, it may be totally wrong, but that might be totally right and awesome. This crazy serendipity thing happens where maybe the vocal comes in and it's in a spring reverb. This happened to me on a C6 Steve record. We had a song, he had a B-side, he hated the song, he didn't hate it. He just thought it wasn't gonna be anything. I put up the tapes, we were at Air in London, I hit play, and suddenly his vocals coming out the left side of the mix with the spring reverb on the right side. And him and I both said, hold it. This is something. This is cool. Suddenly this whole tone shift from the rest of the record. And that's exactly how he ended up doing it. Serendipity. Can't happen in Pro Tools. It can't. The only way to do it is try to find named tracks and import everything about that track into it. Problem with that is that maybe in the production of the track, people put plugins on or whatever. Those plugins get blown out. You can't keep both. The only way to do it, really like a console, would be to build a console of auxes. And that console of auxes, maybe 48 channels of auxes. These tracks go to these 32 channels or however many. Let's just say 32 all the time. All right? And then those have whatever effects on it. And from song to song, you could import them and it would work. That's a fucking pain in the ass. So there's no way to really do it. The second thing about a console, I can reach over here, quickly hit a button, turn a knob, and I can send these two echoes into my reverb and go, oh, I like that. Oh, let me go the other way. Let me send the reverb back into the echoes. Boom, boom, I can just try stuff while the track's moving. And I can, boom, 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 moving the faders, boom, turning the EQ. And I can mix fast. Can't do it in the mouse, can't do it. There's not, and even the S6 and all that, you just can't do that shit. Like, you have to do all this prep work ahead of time to make your template, this big, huge template with all kinds of aux sends and all this and that, the whole patching. And then it's for that song. Then you got to figure out how, okay, so like it's great if you're inside a record and a lot of times you have drums are one thing, bass are one thing, guitars are the same band or whatever. Okay, cool. Well, I mix the next record next week. Now I have to have Mike set that whole session up into my session, and who knows what you'll lose in the thing. So console for me. In the box is awesome. It's great. If you're doing it on a laptop at a cafe in Paris, I mean, and you can make money doing it, man. Fucking man. I'm happy for everybody who can do it. I'm not saying I can't. I could. I probably will at some point when all this shit gets to be too expensive, and people don't hire me. But, for right now, it's working. And I bought a console I can recall. So, works for me. I use Pro Tools because I have too much invested in the hardware and I have too many years of muscle memory and I have no time to learn anything else. Also, I would say 99.4% of my sessions come in Pro Tools. I track, but only for myself, pretty much. I only have a couple clients that I work for outside producers. There's only a couple. I mix for anybody who wants to hire me, and I produce for anybody who wants to hire me. And when I produce, I mostly track and mix for myself. But I'd like to sort of start changing that up a little bit. I'd like to throw somebody in, Mike, probably my assistant, as an engineer, and put him in the tracking seat, just to get different sounds, just to get a different idea. Being the mixing engineer helps you being a producer because I try my best as a producer and as a tracking engineer to record the mix. First of all, 95% of everything I record, I mix. I think that's nice, actually, although not always maybe the most efficient thing. You know, it's that whole, like don't master your own projects, Sometimes like having somebody else mix it might be really nice. It also may be a fucking nightmare because I may hate it. And then I got to fire somebody and I would hate that. If you were to mix a record that I did, it would come to you, all the faders and Pro Tools would be at 0 and you put it on your board at 0 and hit play and that's the rough mix. That's how I record. That's how everybody should record, but they don't. That's how I like to do it. Even if that means I do post-production work to get it there. That's how I like to work. So I guess it's really being a mixer helps me be a tracking engineer because I track to the mix. And being a producer just sort of, become a better producer because you can sort of hear the finished product. I don't always hear the finished product when we're recording, but I hear the finished product right after we cut the track. I sort of have this idea in my head of what we need to do and how it goes, I think my favorite part of the job is the community of people that are around the job. The Reed Shippens, the Ryan Hewitts, the Andrew Sheps, the Jonathan Pines, the Josh Thomas, Evanna Manley. These people are really, really close to Jeff Steiger, another really great one. These people are close to me and they're very, very, very important to me. Steve Marcantonio was here earlier. Yeah. These people are all important to me. The best part of the job is getting to know this group of people and know that we're all in this together. We're all doing this as a career and none of us are doing it it's not like competition, I don't ever think of Reed or Ryan or Andrew or anybody as competition. I don't even care. I try to make the best record I can possibly make with the amount of time I'm given and the budget I'm given and the tracks or the product that I'm handed. And I don't think, I wonder what how's Ryan, or, what record's he doing? Why am I not doing that record? I can care less. For me, this is not a cutthroat business. I know a lot of people who feel like it is cutthroat business. It's not for me. So the best part of it is friendships and all that. And that means musicians and band people. And, I am very lucky to say I have a lot of people who are very famous and incredibly talented that I could call and say, hey, could you come over and play guitar on this for this track I'm doing? And they would do it. That's a cool part of the business. And some of them aren't famous at all. They're just great. And some of them aren't even great. They're just interesting. You know what I mean? The least favorite part of the business is the business. Having to futz with record labels over budgets, having to try to get paid, jump through hoops to get delivery requirements, licensing, blah, 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 blah. Everybody's trying to make money. Everybody wants a piece of everything. And everybody thinks you're out to screw them. Perfect example of this. There was a band I was interested in producing. I shot them a really great deal to produce a single and a B-side. They were into it. Their manager got on the phone with me And, you know, man, to be honest with you, this is small town shit. You know, this is middle America. It was a band from Tulsa and some manager dude who should have, well, used to be in a radio, you know, in A&R. Find out later he was a radio promo guy, whatever. And he gets on the phone with me and he's like, so what's your percentage? And I was like, well, you know, it's kind of standard. I'm the mixer. So what point there? And 3 points for a producer. And he's like, oh, that's way too much. What if this sells 1 million? What if it sells 1 million copies? And I was like, I go, really? Like, if this record sells 1 million copies, we're all like shitting in tall cotton, you know? We're like going to be the happiest motherfuckers on the planet because you won't have paid anything for it and you've just made a fuck ton of money. Like, are you kidding? Why would you even say that? It's the stupidest thing ever. That is the prevailing attitude often with managers and people. It's just looking out for themselves. They're not even really thinking about reality. You know, the reality is, hey, I'm gonna make a couple singles. You're gonna use my name. I know that for promo for your singles. Yeah, I should get paid something for that because that's how it's gonna work. I'm gonna give you a good deal. We're gonna make a record that is lucky if they sell 1,000 copies. But if they sell 1,000 copies at $5, that's $5,000 more than they had before we started. It's interesting. I hear it and I just listen to the mix because we're listening like a lot of times in like it's like the least common denominator situations here. It's usually in mono. And I just, you know, I listen, I go, that's cool. I'll tell you what's really cool is when they use stuff I've done in like football games. Like a couple of years ago, the baseball game, actually, they were playing Dead Weather and Blunderbuss, a whole bunch of that, and Raconteurs in the National League Championship Series, the NLCS. And it was cool to hear like Salute Your Solution, but you know, coming out, going into a commercial break or coming out, you know, it was like, oh, it's pretty cool. But yeah, you know, it's nice. It's nice to hear it. You know, it's cool to hear it in movies. You know, it's cool to hear your track in a movie. You know, that's nice to hear too. I got lucky, man. I did a James Bond theme. Not many people get to do a fucking James Bond theme, you know. So I got to do a James Bond theme. That was pretty awesome. Good song. Has nothing to do with the production. It's a good song. Catchy lyrics, hook, earworm. You know, that's it. There's no rhyme or reason. You know, I'm reminded of that song. The song I'm thinking of is just like that one that goes, ha, 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 or something like that. I just like, that's a fucking hit song. That's like the stupidest thing ever. And I heard it one summer, all fucking summer long. This song with this stupid hook. Go figure. It's the same. It doesn't matter. Every big name artist, you make a record, it's a little more pressure. Every name artist is looking for just to have another hit, you know. So there's pressure there. Young bands have equal pressure. Their pressure is usually, I don't know if we have enough money to eat. It's a different level of pressure, but it's the same thing, and really, because your established artists are just hoping they can continue to make money so they can eat, you know, and raise their families and have a home and blah 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 blah. So you know, there's pressure there, but I don't change my mindset because I'm doing a Chris Stapleton record from doing Illiterate Light or Stray Cats or Jack White or Wanda Jackson or um, you know, bands you've never heard of. It's not really any different. If you act differently or you treat those different, you'll be a failure. Because for every Chris Stapleton out there, established artist, you know, there is a Chris Stapleton that nobody knew anything about when we did Traveler waiting to happen. You know what I mean? Nobody saw that record coming. And now it's you know, Crazy. I don't feel like anything I'm doing is any different than anybody else. The only thing that may be different is if I again worked in like the studio system and Hit Factory or Power Station, or came up through the New York or came up through LA or whatever. I think that there'd be a lot of techniques that I had never seen, that I don't know how to do, that I could use. I remember talking to Chris Shaw one time, and he was talking about like, you know, manipulating the MPC, the MPC, and how they did all this, and how they locked it to tape and all this and stuff. And I was like, no, I never did any of that shit, because it just wasn't around me. I don't think there's any real difference, other than there are techniques and things that I didn't learn, that I don't know how to do. And maybe that's a part of it. I don't know, you're not supposed to do this. Somebody freaked out the other day. I was using a U47, like a U47 on the kick drum, not a FET, the tube one. The guy's like, man, I would never do that. I'm like, why not? Sounds great. Check it out. It's like, oh yeah, it does sound great. Yeah, it's great. It's a great mic. Aren't you going to blow it up? No. Do you think kick drum a foot away is louder than a person singing to it an inch away? Trust me, you're not going to blow it up. How does it feel to turn my passion into my business? Well, I didn't know it was my passion when I started it. I just liked it. I thought I was going to either be a computer programmer or an electrical engineer. I liked programming. I just didn't like the environment. And the funny thing is, that was the environment in 1982 with terminals and workstations and computer labs and all that. It wasn't like I was sitting at home, watching cat videos on one monitor while coding in the other, or something like that. I think for me, the passion of it was I loved music. I wasn't good at it, really. I played French horn in grade school. It was terrible, and it's French horn. It's like the lamest instrument ever when you're a kid. It's heavy. I got to carry it home, and I have to practice. And it was so hard to hit all the notes, man. I just did this until I looked up one day and I was like, wow, I've kind of gotten pretty good at it. I joke, and it's a joke. It's not an untruthful joke. I think the two things I want to be qualified for in the future are education, teaching other people, and dropping fries. I hope it's the first. But if it has to be dropping fries, I'll drop some fries. I'll work at Home Depot. I'll get a job at Lowe's. I'll be the guy at Walmart that goes, aisle 15, bras and panties, aisle 15. Good morning. How are you? I can't hear you. I'm deaf. About 99-ish, late 99, Steve Mason owned a house down in Franklin, Tennessee. And he wanted to build a studio in the basement because he wanted to kind of start writing songs and doing the songwriting thing. And so he built this little studio, and my partner, Mitch Dane, and him, they were all friends. And Mitch had a studio at his house, and he was looking to move into a bigger place. And so Mitch had gear, Steve had the room. So they moved in together, and Steve had a passion for kind of like 50s kitsch. So like 50s horror movies and sci-fi movies. And Sputnik just seemed to be the perfect name for it. So Steve named it Sputnik. It was his basement. It was purple and orange and had cool posters on the wall. And that's where we did this Jars of Clay record in 2001. And so after that record was over, I went back to work for Clever Brothers, and then I left Clever Brothers, went to work with Blackbird. And Steve's now ex-wife didn't want the studio in the basement anymore. She didn't like all the noise. She didn't like people parking in the driveway at all hours of the night, stuff like that. So Mitch, my partner, and Jakir King moved into a studio in Berry Hill that was the old accounting office at the House of Blues. Jakir and Mitch were in there a couple of years together. In 2006, Jakir moved out. I moved in. Mitch was still there working, and we were there until 2014. Is that right? We've been here, this is 18, so we've been here 4 years. So yeah, 14. And we've been here, it'll be 5 years. Yeah, 14. It'll be 5 years in July or June. And so all this time, like all the gear, all the stuff, I had just been collecting. I worked at Blackbird, so there was gear around. And I worked on the road. I carried my own rack, a fixed rack on the road, a bunch of this stuff. This Lexicon PCM 80 I've had 25 years, since it came out. I bought that right after it came out. I got a PCM 90 too. These are things that are old jars of clay. This Electric's Mofex, that's a jars of clay rack thing. A couple of my Space Echoes I had on the road with them. So all that stuff is stuff that I had. And then I think in 2006, I bought a Pro Tools HD system, and a 192. And, I had my own rig starting in 2006 when we moved into Sputnik. I still worked at Blackbird all day, but then I would go to Sputnik at night. And so 2007 or so, when I started working with Jack White, 2007, 2008, I'd come into Blackbird in the morning. I'd work from 8 o'clock to about 11. At 11, I'd go to Jack's. We'd work to about 6:37. At 7, I would drive back to Berry Hill and work at Sputnik till midnight. And I'd do that again every day, every single day. Tough on my home life, I can tell you that for sure. But that's the way I had to build the business. Mitch, all this while, was working, doing Mitch projects, doing the records that he does. And so it worked out. It worked out really well. And then when it came time for us to leave House of Blues, we just jumped in the deep end and, Mitch bought this building and then we built this back part and, I kind of paid for all the studio parts of it. And it's been great. It's a great partnership. He's awesome. What's the most important part of running this business? Honesty. Being honest with people. Hitting deadlines. Coming in under budget. Doing the best job you can with the resources available to you. Impress people, by doing a good job. Being a good person. That's the most important thing. Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. It's easy. It's so weird how hard it is for people to not be a dick. Like, why is it that people have to be a fucking dick? But I know them. We all know them. We know dicks. They're out there. And I'm sure there are people think that I'm a dick. But I do everything in my power to not be a dick. So don't be a dick. And if you do that, people will keep coming back to you. But if you're a dick and you're talented, people will come to you, but they'll think you're a dick. So, don't be a dick. Maybe that's the most important thing about business. Studio business, engineering business, producing business, all that. Although some people enjoy, it's funny how many artists I know who really love producers who are assholes to them, because, maybe they got something out of them that they wouldn't have got. But I don't know. I just don't have that. I just don't have it in me. I'd rather not fight about music. When I talk politics, I'll fight about that. But music, who cares? We do this job. And, I used to have this joke. It was like, well, we do all this work and we make these little round discs that people may or may not like. Well, we don't even make the round discs anymore unless we're making the bigger round discs again. We just make this thing that goes out into the ether, literally, and people could look at it on their phone and play it through their shitty headphones or hear it on the radio or satellite radio or whatever. It's just floating around in space. And the beauty of it is that art, it's art. Art is so subjective. Back to my friend Lou Whitney, one man's boy howdy is another man's far out. What you may love, I may hate. I know people who think Pollock was a fucking idiot. This is like the painter's drop cloth, all his works. Yeah, it is. But he said, hey, I think I can make art out of this. And there it is. It's art. Is it better than the Mona Lisa? Is it better than David? Is it better than, is it better than Starry, Starry Night? No. Is it worse? Nope. It's art. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Don't be a dick. You know who I'm talking about. You know all the people I'm talking about. It's more than one of you. One piece of advice I would give my younger self. Don't buy all that digital crap. Buy some microphones. This will be good for your business. It'll be good for your career. buy some U-47s, buy some 67s. You know, they're cheap right now. It's the 80s. People are throwing that shit away. You know, buy some LA2s. See if you can find some Fairchilds in a dumpster. Pultex, all those things. Get them, because later they're going to be worth a bunch of money. Don't run out and buy, you know, don't buy the fancy digital stuff. Don't buy all this cool new stuff. You know, get 1176s. Don't buy the 160 XTs. You know, yeah, they're only one space and they're DBXs, but don't do that. Buy the 1176s. Yeah, that's what I would say. As far as technique, things like that, buy a really good set of speakers and live with them for the rest of your life. That's a really good plan. Buy a set of speakers you like, or multiple sets of them. They can have more than one, and live with them for the rest of your life. Because the most important thing, I think, in this business is your reference. The thing that you listen to, the speakers you listen on, that's your sound. That's the most important thing. And buy those Neumanns. My one advice to everybody, the Puremixers, just keep doing it. Keep working. Whatever it is you're doing, don't let things get you down. Don't feel like you're not getting it. Just keep doing it. The more you challenge yourself, the better you get. I promise. The more opportunities you put yourself in where you're uncomfortable about the situation, or you're taking on tracking a big band, or you're doing strings for the first time. Believe me, that's a lot of pressure. $40,000 for a 3-hour session for pay for strings. Yeah, you better get your shit right. You know, the more times you do that, every time you'll get better at it and you'll learn. There's things to learn and you'll get better at it. And that means people call you back. So just keep doing it, man. Just keep doing it. Keep after it. You know, I was an overnight success at 45 years of age. Now, what did it take to get there? Oh, about 25 years worth of work. That was 18, so 20 some years worth of work, right? So yeah, I worked for 20 years before anybody knew anything about me, you know, and I didn't see it coming. I didn't know what was going on. I just kept working. Just keep at it. Keep doing it. Use hearing protection. Don't go to shows without earplugs. Get yourself some good West Tone earplugs. Trust me, it'll be good for you. Plan B, real estate. Become a real estate investor, or just buy a studio, buy your house. You own a house. Once you own a house, you already got some equity. Go buy another house. Now, this is all things that I haven't done, by the way, but I know people who have. It's a good deal. You know, invest in a business. But real estate, man, is hard to beat. It's hard to beat because no matter what the economy does, it always goes up. It always goes up. My parents bought their house for $40,000. 30 years later, they sold it for $100,000. That's a pretty darn good investment. Yeah, it took 30 years. But if you're young, 30 years is not that long. Trust me, it is not that long. 30 years ago, I was 24. You know, if I would have bought a house at 24 now and owned my house, holy shit. Man, because now I would have all this equity in my house that I own, right? That I could then invest that equity in another home or an apartment building or something like that. That's income that you'll have for the rest of your life. Plan B, get into real estate. I'm doing Puremix because Fab has these photos of him and I together in Africa in 2008. I really don't want to see those really in public. So pretty much I have to. No, it's totally not true. I'm doing Puremix because I like this process. I like, basically, I know this sounds weird. I like showing people what I do. It's not like some big secret or something. I like telling people, you know, and then they can make a decision whether they like it or not. People could tell me I'm totally wrong. It's totally fine. I don't care. But somebody may pull something out of it that makes them make a better record. And that record I may hear and it may inspire me, and that would be the best thing ever for me. It's a validation of value, that it has value. So for me, I like it. I love the platform. I think it's really cool. Every now and then I get on there and I watch a little bit of Andrew Shep's stuff, and then I just think he's so great, and then it makes me mad and I turn it off. You know, I like hearing what other people have to say, even if I disagree. I like to hear what people say. I like to hear other people in a peer group that I'm honored to be a part of talk about the same issues that we all deal with every day. So I like it, and I appreciate the dedication that you guys put into it. I really love the Raconteurs record. It's a really good record. Joe Ciccarelli engineered it. I mixed it. It was a fun record to mix. The first Dead Weather record, that's me recording and mixing. I really like that record. Some really interesting stuff on there. It's not perfect everywhere, but it's pretty interesting stuff. Blunderbuss, I'm very proud of. There's a couple songs on Lazaretto that I did that I'm really, really proud of. The Tenarwin record I did, I really love that record. The new Clutch record I did this year, that's me, man. That's me producing it, it's me mixing it, it's me recording it, and them playing it. And I really think it's a really, really good record. I mixed a record for a band that's kind of a guy here in town called Phosphorescent this year. That's a really good record. He recorded it, I just mixed it. As far as mixing, that's, it's a pretty great record. Traveler, really good. Favorite Chris Stapleton record I've done is Volume 1, From A Room, Volume 1. And that record I recorded and mixed, and I just really love the song selection. I just love the sound of that record a lot. That's a real high point for me. Traveler's great. I love it. It's beautiful too. Some songs more than others, but just engineering-wise, I'm not talking about the songs, but engineering-wise. There's a band from Norway called Phone Joan. I really love I mixed a record of theirs and then produced a record. You might find them on iTunes. Really, really good. Rival Sons record called, I think, Head Down, maybe. I really like that record. That's a really cool sound record. It's a record from a band from Holland, a band called De Stat. Did a record called Icon, the letter I, and then the word con afterwards. Icon. I really, really love the sound of that record. That's a record I mixed. It's really one of my faves. C6 Steve, bunch of C6 Steve records I really love. The one he just came out with called Can You Cook is probably my favorite. It's the very newest one. We did it down in Key West. We recorded the whole record in 5 days, between 11 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. And that was it. And we took a lunch, but we had one. I mean, it's the craziest record schedule. We just didn't work hard at all. Did nothing. We're on vacation. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to make a record. Just recorded the band and we were done. It's great. So, and then we did more work afterwards, but basically that was it. So those are all the ones. I mean, I could probably make a list, but just go out there and find it. They're not all hits, but they're not all misses.